All right, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack a seemingly simple story that actually acts as a profound mirror for human nature. Today, we're looking at a brilliantly concise piece of fiction by author Joe Blow, who you might also know by his pen name, Aussie Scribbler. It's called Two Shaky Towers of Fable. Now, I know what you're thinking. On the surface, a fable sounds like a simple children's story, right? But as we're about to see, this is actually a meticulously crafted allegory about societal breakdown.
So, what happens when fear takes over a society? It's a heavy question, for sure. I want you to keep this central idea in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer today. Because honestly, this isn't just about some fictional group of people. It's a direct reflection of how any collective group, maybe even our own, behaves when an unexpected, terrifying element gets dropped right into our daily lives. Section 1. The Anatomy of Fear. A Descent into Paranoia. Okay, so every good story starts with a status quo, and here we've got a peaceful tribe living in what basically sounds like absolute paradise. Picture this. They're situated on this beautiful beach, safely nestled right between a dense, bountiful forest on one side and a perfectly calm, tranquil lake on the other. It's idyllic. It's completely harmonious. They've got everything they could possibly need to thrive. But, peace is often pretty fragile. It literally only takes one unknown variable to completely shatter it.
And boom, here is that variable, the 2-foot spider. Imagine just going about your peaceful life on the beach, only to discover a massive, terrifying spider, literally 2 feet across, living right there beneath the sand you walk on every single day. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that this spider isn't just a literal giant bug in the context of the story, it's a metaphor. It represents those sudden, paralyzing, systemic anxieties that can completely upend a society. It's the invisible threat, right? That sudden realization of danger lurking just below the surface of our comfortable lives. The real terror isn't just the spider itself. It's that sudden, unshakable feeling of vulnerability.
Section 2. The Two Towers. Reacting to Fear. Now, what's really fascinating about this situation is how perfectly it captures human irrationality in the face of fear. Instead of banding together to figure out a solution, what does the tribe do? They split. And look at what divides them. It's not some grand ideological difference. It's literally their diet. We have the fish eaters on the left, who decide to build a tower overlooking the lake to escape the sand, and then the fruit eaters on the right, who build their own totally separate tower near the forest. Think about how utterly arbitrary that division is. Fear doesn't make us logical. It forces us to draw random lines in the sand, or, in this case, above the sand, and retreat to our respective corners with the people who are just like us. Section 3. The Madness of Division, Isolation and Conflict. You'd think hiding in a tower would help, right? Well, actually, scratch that. This isolation strategy doesn't bring peace at all. It leads straight to conflict and madness. When you lock yourself away in a tower, looking out only at your own side, whether that's the lake or the forest, you completely stop communicating with the other half of your community. You retreat into an echo chamber. The publisher's summary calls this a dryly witty fable, and the wit really comes from this dark irony. The tribe thought they were building towers to protect themselves from the spider, but they actually just built monuments to their own paranoia. They transformed from a unified, peaceful people into hostile, irrational enemies, driven entirely by separation and fear. Section 4. The Scope of the Story. A Masterclass in Brevity. 18. That is the total page count of this book. Just let that sink in for a second. This sweeping critique of societal breakdown, this deep dive into fear, isolation, and tribalism takes a mere 18 pages to unfold. It was published back in 2011, and it is an absolute masterclass in brevity. The author doesn't waste a single word. He builds a world, introduces a threat, shatters a society, and delivers a profound moral in fewer pages than a single chapter of most novels. It's incredibly impressive. But because it's so concise and allegorical, it's also incredibly polarizing for readers. When we look at its reception across different platforms, we see a pretty stark split. On Goodreads, it holds a modest 3.07 average from 15 ratings, but over on Apple Books, it jumps to a much stronger 3.9 average across 60 ratings. So why the discrepancy? Well, fables require the reader to do a lot of the heavy lifting. If you go in expecting a traditional plot-heavy fantasy, 18 pages of metaphor might honestly just leave you scratching your head. But if you engage with the underlying philosophy, it resonates deeply. Section 5. The Philosophy of Freedom. The Mind Behind It. In this brilliantly illustrates the author's broader mission. A quick glance at Joe Blow's bibliography reveals a really persistent theme. We've got How to Be Free, published the same year as our Fable. Then there's Materialism is Masturbation, Essays in Freedom, The Antichrist Psychosis, and Hurt-Proofing Ourselves. You can see a very clear, persistent thread here, right? Joe Blow's entire body of work is dedicated to understanding human psychology, challenging societal norms, and figuring out how to free the mind from self-imposed traps. Two Shaky Towers isn't some random departure into fiction. It is the exact same philosophical pursuit, just dressed up as a story about a beach and a spider. He's trying to show us how we trap ourselves in these towers of our own making.
Section 6. Overcoming the Divide. Reader Reactions. First up, we have this review from 2013 by a user named Master Minecrafter. They simply say, "It is a great book." And hey, that's totally valid. At its surface level, it's a creative, quick read. It's just a neat little story about a tribe and a giant spider. You can absolutely enjoy the surface-level plot without having to dig too deep into the existential dread.
Then we have this moderate reaction from 2019 by Dylan35, who says, "A good short fictional story. It is neither bad nor great, just good." This is a perfect reminder that allegories land differently depending on the reader's perspective and what they're looking for at that exact moment. Sometimes a tower is just a tower to a reader, and that's fine.
But then we escalate to this review from 2021 by Nicra1, and this reader perfectly cements the deep comprehension of the fable's true value. They wrote, "In this short fable, the author shows the damage that fear can cause in any society, portraying the escalation of issues arising from such perspective. They hit the nail right on the head. They saw past the sand, past the spider, past the fruit and the fish. They recognized the core message. It's a stark warning about collective panic and the devastating escalation of issues when a society actually allows fear to dictate its architecture." So, the final question I want to leave you with today is this. We've seen how the fish eaters and the fruit eaters let their fear divide them, isolating themselves in high towers while totally ignoring the real world below. So I've got to ask you, what spiders are currently driving you into your own shaky tower? What invisible fears are causing you to retreat, to isolate, or to view your neighbors as enemies based on completely arbitrary divisions? Let that question linger for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I genuinely hope you walk away looking at your own world and your own towers just a little bit differently.